Welcome back to our Draft League series, in which we are discussing popular Pokemon in the format. So, in this episode, we'll be tackling Tapu Koko. So, as you all may know, Tapu Koko is one of the most popular Pokemon in Draft League, or any format in competitive Pokemon, as of Gen 7. So, as we'll just go over like some reasons or some points why Tapu Koko is like good or bad in this case, so whatever. So that way you guys can form your opinions on it. So in this case, we'll be discussing in terms of draft league. So just like how we did with Manaphy, we'll be discussing movesets, its ability, its pretty much everything about it. Its moves, like partners in this case. So yeah. So getting right into it. Tapu Koko. So typing, it's electric fairy. So this is from like Wikipedia. So when you look at the typings, like from Tapu Koko, it's really nice from a defensive standpoint because it has some very nice resistances to some of the most common offensive moves and our types in the game, like fighting, flying, electric, dark, even dragon, for all, as well as bug. So these are very offensive types that like Tapu Koko could just resist. The fact that they actually resist like fighting and flying is really nice, as well as immunity to dragons. Pretty much huge boon to it. So of course it has two weaknesses to poison and ground. Ground is obviously the most ever common type that like legendary types always have to deal with, but poison is not as common, but you might see it from time to time in draft league, given how like people love to have like those mods. So base stats. Tapu Koko is very you might think these are very mediocre stats here, but with its attack stat being its highest, so 115, good defenses, or above average, or not above average, kind of average, and mediocre special attack, but its speed is pretty much what its standout stat is with 130. So as you can see, the ranges from like level 50 and level 100s. Like this mod is like one of the fastest Pokemon in the game, pretty much. It's like on par with that of Jolteon, Aerodactyl. So, and in terms of its ability, it has Electric Surge, which pretty much activates electric terrain for 5 turns, or 8 if you have 8 if you have like Electric Terrain Extender. So it boosts the power of electric type moves and prevents grounded Pokemon from going to sleep. So yeah, really nice ability, since it's a nice power boost to increase its electric type stab moves. So yeah. So why draft Tapu Koko? So it's pretty much one of the premier, as I mentioned, like it's one of the premier like electric types in any competitive Pokemon. Even in draft league. So as it's pretty much one of the best offensive pivots. It can always like great offensive pressure and has great utility options, as you're about to see. So can hit very hard electric terrain boosted stabs. So like Thunderbolt, Thunder. Even with Z options, it's just to be very annoying to deal with. And Electric Fairy is pretty much an amazing typing. So even that defensively, as we've looked at through it, like very few Pokemon can take like Electric Fairy hit unless you're like either, let's say, like a ground or poison type. So it has a great move pool from offensive and defensive moves. So as we'll cover that, and it's pretty fast. It's very unpredictable in terms of like even for a mon with like kind of mediocre stats, especially given how like this is a legendary that kind of got. This is a legendary that with 570 BST, and since most of the legendaries kind of got a slight nerf now for some reason in Sun and Moon, but then again, Tapu Koko's case, I don't think it's kind of wore it down. So it has great utility to help disrupt or wear down the opposing team, as you'll see with its Stall Breaker set. So notable moves you'd see, popular options. You have Thunderbolt, Discharge, just pretty much your go-to butter electric type stabs. Thunderbolt obviously for just power. You could also have Thunder in case you have, if you're risky, deals more damage. and discharge just to like spread paralysis if you'd like to be that guy. So then you have dazzling gleam, which is best fairy move. It doesn't have access to moonblast, so that's unfortunate. The good thing is that it has access to two unique pivoting options: U-turn and volt switch. U-turn is good to like pivot out against the opposing ground types and Pokemon that have like abilities like, you know, lightning rod or volt absorb. So volt switch is also nice because in case you want to pivot out while having a boosted move. So then you have hidden power fire, ice, or any hidden power just be tailored towards. So you have grass knot hit like ground types, taunt just to prevent setup, roost to recover, defog. They actually got defog in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Nature's Madness to cut the target's HP by 50%. Calm Mind to increase the special attack, special defense. There's some viable options here, like some physical moves like Wild Charge, Thunder Punch to make use of its 115 attack, which is kind of respectable. So it has Mirror Move, which is the option. It's pretty deadly if you think about it. So it has Toxic, Iron Head for fairies, like dual screens. Even has Roar, has its own priority in quick attack, and even power swap if you want to like be that guy and just swap stats. So yeah. In terms of Z options or item choices, there's a variety of items that you can run with Tapu Koko. No, mostly like offensive. Like in terms of Z moves, you can run, let's say, Electrium Z to like power one of its electric moves. Like let's say Z Thunder, or Bolt or Thunder. You just now have like a one-time nuke with boosted when electric terrain. So you can also use Fairy MZ to make use of its the Dazzling Gleam to take out like dragons, darks, or fighting Pokemon, since Koko does have a very low special attack stat and may or may not kill them. So if you want that extra power, you might like that. So then you have Fly MZ, which makes use of Z Brave Bird or Z Mirror move. So we'll get to those when we get to the set. So offensive items like Life Orb, Expert Belt, Magnet are very common, so boost Park's moves. Then you might see like choice items, which boost one of Koko's stats by 50%, but the cost of moves restriction or just limiting it by 1. Let's say like Band, Choice Scarf, and Choice Specs can just boost its one of its stats by 50%, but it has to be used the same move over and over. So there's its merits and benefit and issues with that. But Assault Vest, you can use that. So, but you can't use like status moves like Taunt or Ruse. So you can also use Chucka, Keep a Berry just to reduce super effective damage. Since you were technically only weak to those two types, it's nice to have like insurance against it. You can also make use of recovery items like the 50% berries and leftovers, since Koko does have access to Roost and some setup. And lastly, you can use a sort of a suicide lead set with like a light play and focus sash, so just to set up dual screens. So yeah. So now we're talking about sets. So since this is Tapu Koko, we're gonna be diving into like I'd say 10 sets today. So our first set examples are like pretty much standard bread and butter sets you're gonna see in matches, like Modest, Timid. You could like the Pokemon, like the Tapu Koko sets you see are gonna be Modest or Timid, but it really depends on the team matchup. So whether or not you need it or not. So you don't have to like rip from the spreads or whatever. So like I mean I did rip from some of the Snowground sets, but like it's just there just to mostly point out like, okay, so here's some common sets you could use. So because that's pretty much like what you could use. So yeah. So let's just get back. So first set is pretty much Special Pivot. The most common Koko set. You might see Modest Nature because obviously in Draft League you're not going to be facing that many fast Pokemon, but sometimes you may from time to time. So Timid might be run. So in this space, you outspace base 110s, but you can also go for Timid to outpace 120s. Yeah, Bolt Beam coverage with Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and then you have your choice of Dazzling Beam, Grass Knot, and Utility, or Pivot when you turn it, Volt Switch. So, and then like for the other sets, pretty much like using one of the Z moves, whether it be Thunderbolt, Dazzling Gleam, or even a new one like Tapu ENZ, like which pretty much I think it activates Guardian of Alola, which cuts the target's HP down to 75% of it instead of like 50%, which can be useful just to like get an insured Oko instead of 50% from like let's say Nature's Madness. Well, Nature's Madness is really nice because it just cuts down anything to 50% when it wants to. So yeah. So our second set of options are pivots. You've seen this like before. So like fast taunt. Since Koko has access to 130 speed, and it makes for a great taunt user. So it's very fast. You can just pivot out, Thunderbolt, Dazzling. So, and the other one is pretty much a defog set, which pretty much like you just, in case your team needs any form of defog support, like then Koko could just like use like defog, roost off any damage, and taunt Thunderbolt when it needs Thunderbolt, and then just get out of there. So it's pretty much there just to like help out against like just to help the team like with recovery, so or like with dealing with instant hazards in general. So second set or the third set of sets are choice sets, which two of them are arguably the most popular are choice specs and choice scarf. Now choice specs makes sense because like you're boosting up Koko's power even further with like a 50% boost. So specs boost Thunderbolt, it's gonna hit really hard, as well as Dazzling Wave and Volt Switch. You could also use U-turn in case you want to pivot out against ground types, and Hidden Power Ice and Grass just to hit like opposing Dragon, Flying, and or ground types for heavy damage. Now Scarf Koko might seem off, but it does reach at level 100 it does reach a 591 speed, which is very fast compared to like some of like the weather sweepers, like they say Mega Swampert or like Kingdra if it's modest, or Kuli Kodo. So it's really nice to have a Koko set that could just outspeed those mons. So you could also go Timid if you want to ensure to outspeed those mons as well. So whether you could also use this Koko set to outspeed faster mons, like let's say Lopunny, Megazam, or even like Megapurge, as I mentioned in Rain. And you could adjust the power because, of course, like if you're running Timid, you're going to be like somewhat weaker compared to like using a Life Orb or one of those items. So yeah. Then you have next set you have are the utility support sets. So the first one is pretty much a Stall Breaker set which makes use of Nature's Madness and Taunt Roost. So like max HP, some speed, shot speed, like base 100 hits, and some special attack. But again, you could just tailor it around. So this is the first set makes use of Taunt, Nature's Madness, just to wear down pivots and walls, just to like help your team just wear down those mons, or just even at a percent to where like something like a cleaner, let's say like a Lopunny or like Sam or Infernape, just can easily just Oko them like whenever it needs to. So get in and just get out. So. Or Koko could just pick them off if it wants to. So yeah, it's really nice to have Taunt because it prevents any sort of setup, entry hazards, and like Nature's Madness just cuts anything down to 50%. Like, of course, you have its equivalent like Super Fang, but Super Fang is already like is immune to ghost types, and Fairy isn't immune to anything, or there's nothing immune to Fairy. So yeah, it's really nice to have. Of course, the drawback is you may miss 10% of the time, but yeah. Doing 50% is really, really nice. So then you have the other set, which is Dual Screens, which is pretty much makes use of Koko as a setter. You either run Light Clay or Focus Sash if you need to set up the screens. So Light Clay is pretty much just to extend it to like let's say 5 to 8 turns. So you make use of Light Screen, Light Reflect. So you can use either U-turn or Taunt just to pivot out, or just prevent any setup like rocks, entry hazards, and then you have Thunderbolt just to take out certain mons if we need to. So last sets are miscellaneous. The first one I want to talk about is a Combine set, which makes use of Koko's boosting. Now, Combine with can help Koko like alleviate its special attack and just hit really hard with Thunderbolt and Dazzling Aim, as well as have access to Roost to make use of its bulk. So it has max HP, some defense, and I think a little bit of speed. Well, then again, when you have that much speed, you're already fast enough as is. So yeah. So then the other one, and you can also make use of Electric MC. So you could just Combine once, and then just like you could pretty much nuke whatever is in front that's not electric. It's not like a special wall or ground type. So So it pretty much it's really nice to have like Koko like with a calm mindset. So another set you could try is a physical bird, which makes use of it's 115 attack. So let's say you want to tail like if there's like a special water type with like that's fully invested, maybe with a salt vest that's anticipating to take a thunderbolt. Maybe you surprise them with like a wild charge or thunder punch, and they just take massive damage. Same with like using Brave Bird against grass types. So yeah, U-turn is really nice just to pivot out. And lastly, the mirror move pretty much is very interesting because you gain +2 attack and use the opponent's own move as a Z move, which is kind of scary if you think about it. So you're already using a +2 Z move, but that's if they use it. So their own attack. So yeah. So in terms of partners, you like to have like bulky ground types to take on steel and poison type Pokemon, since ground is very super effective against them and can usually have high defenses in general. You also want to have grass types to deal with ground type Pokemon, since ground can deal with them. So Koko. Another like core you want like to pair with Koko is like steel and dragon, since you could form a steel dragon fairy core. Since steel types are immune to poisons, and dragons are often flying types or levitating, so they can take on some ground types, and they usually form a good offensive pairing with Koko. Then you want to have like strong wall breakers, cleaners, or setup mons who appreciate Koko's pivoting or support options it has. And then you have like flying Pokemon who take no damage from ground types and drink a setup. And lastly, pivot mons, like, you know, not just Volturn, like U-Volturn, U-Turn, also like Pokemon with regen or parting shot. They make very nice cores as well. So our first partner selections for Koko are going to be this visual. So top Pokemon are like usually like they have access to U-Turn or like hazard entry hazards and defog. You could put Diggersby on U-Turn's list, but usually it's seen as a wall breaker. So yeah, Landorus, Discord, Flygon, and Gligar really make good partners with Koko in terms of being pivots. For walls, you want to have like, let's say if you're looking for a wall, ground type wall, like Hippowdon, Nidoqueen, Rhyperior, Donphan, or Gastrodon, make good walls. Some of them have good recovery. They're just very bulky in general, have access to hazards like rocks, or even for Nidoqueen's case, T-spikes, and are just really bulky to take down. So. And lastly, the bottom ground types are usually offensive or wall breakers, so like Garchomp, Escadrille, Mega Swampert, in Raid, Gradile, Zygarde, or Mamoswine, Nidoqueen, and as well as Dignigree, really can form really good offensive core. So with Koko, so as well as the bottom because they can just wall break whatever mon. So for grass types, the top ones are usually like are pivot and regen mons. Like I think Tangela, Tangrowth, Amoonguss can just take any hit from Koko needs to. So they have regen, so they can just recover off like a third of their HP anytime they switch back in and out. So then you have other mons like Celebi, Decidueye, and Tisserino that have access to U-turn and recovery. So all of them also have recovery. So most grass types do have recovery options like Seeds or Sinitas. So yeah, the bottom, the middle top, or the middle, like we were talking about, like tanks and hazards options for Koko. Like these are mons that just enjoy taking ground or like poison type hits. Like let's say Venusaur, and Vileplume. So Pokemon in the middle are like usually spikers, like T-spikers, like Chestnut, Roserade, and Ferrothorn. In the bottom, you see offensive mons like Kartana, Bulu, Superior, Shaman, and Berzian. Shaman can be built defensively as well as Bulu, but usually you might see like these mons like built offensively most of the time. So when paired with Bulu with Koko, so yeah. For steel types, you want to have Volturn pivots like Scizor, like either Scizor form is fine. In case you can't get Mega Scizor, you can get regular Scizor if you can. So then you have Jirachi, Cobalion, and Fortress, which I think have access to U-turn, Volturn respectively, and have Rocks. So yeah, you just pivot out whenever. So and then there's like defensive Pokemon, steel types that usually like to take a hit from like let's say like poison, even ground type moves, like let's say Bronzong, Skarm, and Celesteela. So most of these Pokemon like Heatran, Ferrothorn, Napoleon, and Registeel have a great utility options as well. They have status, they have hazard options as well. So like spikes, like Taunt, and like Defog. So they make good partners with Coco. So then lastly, you have offensive steel or Wall Breaker steel type. So and of course, like you have Magearna and Mega Mawile, Steel Fairy types are just like really insane with pairing with Coco. And then you have Escadrille, Bisharp, Cortana, and Metagross, who are very powerful physical attackers in general. So yeah. For Dragon type Pokemon, Wall Breakers like Kyurem Black and also Kyurem, Charax, Axers, and Kingdra make good partners with like Coco since they just like they love the fact that like Coco can pivot into these mons and they get to just have a good manage straight off the bat. You could also say the same thing about just about any other Dragon type since most of them are Wall Breakers, like including those on the bottom, but they usually want to have setup. And the top ones are usually like they can attack immediately, so if they want to or if needed. So pivots, generally speaking, you want to have good pivot options, like let's say like Hydreigon with Levitate, and you have like Flygon and Noivern. Then you have Latios and Latias who can provide good like offensive or special offensive pairing with like Coco. They have access to utility like Defog, screens, and whatnot. So yeah. And lastly are the mons in the bottom or dragons that are like just set up with Dragon Dance or Sword Dance respectively, and just they could just set up and just wall break or just clean if they want to. So yeah. So scary mons in general. So partners for flying and levitate mons. So most of these Pokemon you've already seen because like flying is usually a common secondary typing. So you see like Landorus, Hydreigon, Pelipper, Crobat, Tornadus T. Just they love to switch in and out here and there whenever they can. So then you see like Pokemon that are like defensive, like Celesteela, Skarm, Gliscor. Gliscor also can be a pivot U-turn, and Mandibuzz. These mons are very defensive to build most of the time, as well as you see like in those eras, like some of the other like levitate mons here are also like, with the exception of maybe Latios and Latias, can be built defensively. So for levitate mons, most of these Pokemon are also Psychic type Pokemon, with the exception of Hydreigon. And thing is, like Hydreigon, is mostly offensive, but can be like a wall if you wanted. So, but other mons like dedicated mons like Bronzong, Cresselia, and even like the Guardians can like serve as good like pivots or even like good like bulky like walls if they need to. So I think except for Azelf, though Azelf has access to screen. Yeah. And what I like to mention is that these levitate users are immune to like ground moves and have a good matchup to like poison type. So they're very like great partners in that regard. So both offensively and defensively. So in terms of setup, like these are the bottom mons again. It's like we already mentioned Dragon Items. Means they could just set up Dragon Dances and just sweep or whatever. Also Gyarados. And then Pinsir is a really good pairing because like it appreciates Coco dealing with a bulky like steals and like rocks or like not rock types but like water types that sometimes they can't break. So, and lastly you have Hawlucha himself, the electric terrain's unburdened sweeper. Like do I have to explain this one? Like Hawlucha just sets up with electric. Once it gets into electric terrain with its seed, has +1 defense, can easily Sword Dance, has boosted speed, just sweep an entire team if it wants to. So that's a very nasty core you gotta prepare for. So for other partners, like generally speaking, most wall breakers do the job well, but in this case I'm just gonna list down like some water and psychic types. Since Mega Medicham, Hoopa, Uniclus, and Mega Glade, like they deal very well against poison type Pokemon, and sometimes some ground types, since they have massive either attack stats or in this case defense. They could just set up on them and just potentially sweep. So, and I did mention Manaphy. I did put Manaphy and Azumarill here because they are great water type wall breakers since they can easily threaten like opposing ground types with their like with their stab water moves. So, and I did mention Mega Heracross since it's usually resistant to ground and just takes advantage of most ground types. So, for fast and bulky pivots, this is mostly for fire and water types. I mentioned like the first three here are Victini, Infernape, Darm. They have access to U-turn. They're really strong. Like they have powerful physical stabs, and Infernape and Victini say it can be like mixed. So, and Darm is always like a strong physical attacker. So, and they just like they have like massive like or good offensive pressure. So they could pair well with Koko. And the other water types, Alomola, Slowbro, and Pex are also good since they could just take hits from like let's say like opposing ground, water moves, and even like electric. Not electric, but like on poison. In Slowbro's case, it can deal with ground and poison type Pokemon. So, and also Slowking. I didn't put Slowking in the visual, so. And lastly, I added Alolan Persian and also Silvally. And you can add Silvally and Pangoro since they can pivot out to Koko and have access to Parting Shot, which lowers the offensive stats, and just switch out. So yeah, in general, so yeah. Then you have revenge killers like Lopunny, Zan, Mega Arrow, Weavile, and Greninja that just any Pokemon with Scarf can just like take advantage of. Can be like work as a 1-2 punch for like opposing teams. Like Koko could just wall break or like clean, like just do enough damage to like one of these guys to, or just these guys to just clean up the opposing team. So yeah. And lastly, I think we've already noticed this. Electric Terrain. So we already talked about how Hawlucha just like uses some burden just to set up with electric seeds, as you notice in the image visual. It just sets up with sword stances. It also has access to Encore, so if you try anything funny, like let's say like set up on Hawlucha, it could potentially Encore you back. So then you have a Alolan Raichu, which pretty much doubles its speed with like electric terrain, so it's kinda like using a weather move, so it's kinda like having weather, so and also I mentioned like any Pokemon with electric type moves that are strong, so most of these Pokemon in the top wall breakers like have electric type coverage, so like Medicham and Hoopa and Victini respectively, which like they could just have a boosted Thunder Punch or and such, so which pretty much like allows them to bypass like or even two-shot like water types or flying type Pokemon, so that's something I gotta note. So in terms of like checks and counters, while Koko is seen as an offensive threat, its rather fails. Defensive steps are too much to go back, it can't be exploited, so and also like even its offensive stats are kind of mediocre, so if it can't two-shot things, it's generally gonna get like worn down very fast, and it's gonna like usually want to pivot out. So yeah, so I like a lot of these Pokemon I mentioned already. So like defensive ground types and agile and grass types and ground types, and as well as the poison types can threaten Koko, and also Pokemon with like high special defense and also revenge killers. So I do want to point out that like speed control, like Trick Room, Icy Wind, Rock Tomb, Weather Sweepers can help. So and any Pokemon that just resists electric and fairy in general, just lures with like let's say a Wakan or Sutterberry, Roselia can just take Koko's hits very easily, so or even Yachi. So in terms of counters for ground types, I didn't put all of them in X, so here's some like good examples of ground types, defensive ground types that could just take them on, like the Paladon, Nidoqueen, and I think Gastrodon and Pylosan have access. No, except in Nidoqueen case, like have access to recovery, and just like can just dish out a powerful ground move like let's say Earth Power or Earthquake respectively. Nidoqueen's case, like, it has access to its typing itself just kind of counters Koko on paper, but Koko can just like wear it down with Nature's Madness and HP Ices respectively. Gliscor can work as a counter, but like you got to be very careful because it could just have HP Ice. So Steelix and Mega Camerupt actually do very well against Koko, but especially Steelix because it just walls it completely. The only thing it has to worry about is Nature's Madness again, and for Mega Camel's case if it has HP Water. So yeah, for offensive ground types, you want to have ground type. Like these mons can actually can revenge kill Koko if they have scarves or have like a respective lore item like a Yachi Berry or like Roselli Berry or whatever. So Nidoking can also like resist Koko's moves very well, but it has lower defenses, so yeah. So it can't really switch in too well. So you guys just gotta watch out for that. So in terms of like grass type counters, like most of the time you're gonna have to like scout out whether Koko has like let's say Brave Bird or they're physical or they have like specs HPIs or something like that similar. But most of the time like Mega Venusaur, Tangrowth, Amoonguss, and Tangela are gonna be good counters with them. So they're likely just Koko's likely gonna both turn out. So Vileplume, Dhelmise, Ferrothorn, and Rotom like and it's just like Koko can't do much with them. And Ferrothorn and Rotom's case can just like use their utility options to just pivot out or just set up spikes or whatever you want to call it. So and then the offensive checks would include like Bulu, Shaman, Roselia, and Kartana, since these guys can just like easily take a hit or whatever. So now, maybe it's like one hit and then just like retaliate back with like a Sludge Bomb or Earth Power, Wood Hammer, or Thief Blade. Poison type Pokemon, some of these I've already mentioned, like Mega Venusaur, like Amoonguss, and Vileplume respectively. Then you have Nidoqueen, I've already mentioned it, and Alolan Muck and Nihilego. Since these Pokemon, Alolan Muck and Nihilego have very high special defense stats and can easily take those Thunderbolts if they need to, so yeah. And for offensive checks, again, like Nidoking does really well, as well as Mega Beedrill, which generally outspeeds, Scolipede with speed boost, Dragology, which is high special defense, and also Drapion if it's fast or like has an EV can take on Koko. Lastly, Gengar with Scarf can do it, so yeah. For like this last section, I kind of like just put everything down together in one. So dedicated walls, you might want to have like something like a pink blob or something like a cleric, like our duck you want to deal with. So yeah, but you got to be careful that Koko can be a stall breaker set. So with Taunt, Nature's Madness, so that you got to be very worried about that. So, but for offensive checks and counters that are like the respective types I mentioned. Most of these Pokemon like Snorlax, Magnezone, Rotom H, Electros, and even Charizard X can just deal with Koko very nicely. So Snorlax has a very high special defense and can just knock it out with Earthquake. Magnezone resists its attacks in general. Rotom as well. Electros with an AV can do a good job. And lastly, Char X deserves a special mention as it's one of the very few Dragon types that could take on Koko and set up in front of it. So that's really nice. So electric ability, her immune ability, so like Lightning Rod, Volt Absorb, and the last one, like Motor Drive, I believe. So like these are abilities that absorb like that absorb electric type moves, so they just render its weak. So Lola Marowak deserves a special mention that it's immune to like electric moves with Lightning Rod and has access to fire typing to resist the fairy, so it could just come in easily. So their aura also has very good speed that outspeeds Koko, takes advantage and uses its electric terrain boosted Plasma Fist against it. So Lantern can resist well, it doesn't resist dazzlingly, but it could take like Thunderbolts really easy with the Volt Absorb. And Raichu has Lightning Rod as well, and Electivire has Motor Drive, so you could just come in and just kill it with EQ. So lastly, you have Revenge Killers like Wapani, Vidrill, Zam, and then priority mons like Scizor, Entei, Dragonite, Mamoswine, some with E-Speed, Ice Shard, respectively, just can KO Koko if they're weakened. And then Weather Sweepers like Escadrille and Kingdrill can do well, as well as any Scarfers in general, like random Scarfers that you can have for the matchup. So yeah, just to deal with the Koko specifically, because having base 130 speed is really fast, so you're gonna have to surprise some players with that. So overall verdict regarding Tapu Koko, it's practically one of the best like electric type Pokemon and pivots in the draft league format. So it's like pretty much like one of the most common like Pokemon you're always going to see drafted like within like the first round of any draft. So it's just because it fulfills a variety of roles, and you just like the stall breaker sets, the combine, like it can even run mix if it wants to. Like I didn't even touch on that. So like it has access to defog, taunt, nature's madness, and even like its special attacking sets aren't that bad. It's despite having a 95, special attack. It's just the typing itself is really good. So it's rather frail defensively, but it just needs to switch out in those bad matchups. So like U-turn and Volt Switch, unless there's a random Scarfer with Earthquake. So yeah, like Nidoqueen. So just to make to make the best of the situation. So yeah, and can't be dealt with proper Pokemon, defensive Pokemon in general. But so it's not like it's like, oh my god, it's broken. It's just that you need to have checks to them. So it's a very dangerous Pokemon to deal with, since it's like with its speed, with its power, offensive power, and it's like Electric Drain boosted moves. It's gonna be very difficult to deal with. Like Koko's like always gonna be one of those Pokemon that you're gonna have to deal with every time. And it anytime you see a Koko in a draft, or a Koko like someone has it, unless you have like let's say a hard counter team to Koko, then chances are likely your opponent's just gonna deal with it are gonna have a bad time against Koko. So they're not gonna bring it in general, but still, it's always a Pokemon you want to consider when building with or against it. So yeah. So overall, I do think Koko is probably one of like the top 3, maybe it's top 1, like the number 1 like best regular draft Pokemon. There's some up there that we are like probably gonna discuss in like future videos, so we'll get to those ones in a bit. So so that is it for our draft analysis for Tapu Koko. So what do you guys think? So about anything I've said and hearing me jamble or like spit out words for like next 30 minutes and so Koko is technically one of the more like diverse Pokemon. I just kind of like in the format, just kind of want to like to touch on all topics. So I did make some changes with the visuals, so just to make it more like appealing. So I didn't want to have like a little wall of text there. So I just want to show like some partners and like counters as well. So if you guys if you guys noticed, so for anyone who got to this point in the video, I want to say like thank you, or like just skipped here. So thank you for skipping here. So yeah, thanks. And I'll be covering another Pokemon next week. So look forward for that. So hopefully we'll get to cover more Pokemon in the Draft League format. So yeah. What other Pokemon do you want to hear about in this series? Like, let me know in the comments, as well as anything you want I've missed out on regarding saying, or even like misspoke or made an error about like Koko, or like any error you mentioned I've done. So like I just want to hear what you guys have to say. So yeah. So yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back for next week for another video. So peace.